So how do you create a brand that truly represents who you are and the products you sell, as well as building a business that you can scale online? That is what this podcast will help you do. My name is Henry Kaminsky Jr., and welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast.
Let me just make this statement loud and clear. Jersey's here, Jersey's here.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. Today's guest is going to help us understand how to create tailored B2B content that's going to help us engage with our deal clients and get them to buy from us. I mean, let's get down to the bottom of this, right? So he's got an amazing story of how he started his agency. We're going to geek out here because we're definitely cut from the same cloth here. And we're going to get into a deep dive of all of this. But before we get started, guys, got a quick little message for you. Right back. If you're a business owner who wants to significantly grow your audience online and needs help dialing in your message to attract the right clients, check out this free video training that will help you position yourself more effectively and improve your brand's online presence. Visit www.uniquedesigns, with a Z at the end, not an S, .net/brand strategy. My man, Mark Raffan, what is shaking, my dude?
What's going on, man? Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Dude, no problem. Todd Meltzer and I should say Todd Meltzer, but Todd Armstrong from the Meltzer Group over there said some really great things about you, and I
appreciate that. I hope you didn't play it up too much. Now there's pressure, man. What are you doing to me? Lay me out in front of your entire audience? My gosh.
I love it, dude. I love it. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about how you got started in the industry and give us a little backstory here. Branding is all about backstory and telling stories. And so wanted to get a little bit about you to the audience before we dive in.
I appreciate that, man. So my story starts outside of advertising and marketing in general. I actually was in corporate for a really long time, worked in sales and procurement for a really long time, and then realized that I fucking hated working in the corporate world and wanted to start my own thing. Started up a company called Negotiations Ninja, which is a negotiation training and coaching business. And we developed our brand around being a thought leadership brand within the negotiation space, teaching enterprise sales teams how to get better deals. And we figured, we did such a good job of it, we thought we could probably do this for other people. So a few years ago, we started Content Callout, which is now a B2B content marketing agency that helps brands really to identify who their target customer is and create really cool contextual experiences for those targeted customers and driving them to develop their thought leadership brand across a multitude of different platforms to be able to help them grow into who they should be, which is the thought leader within their space.
Oh, I love it, dude. I love it. So let's get into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
One of the things that really caught my eye about you is how you talk about creating tailored B2B content that's going to help you engage your audience and get them converting into customers or clients, whatever you want to call them, right? We like to call them clients here. So talk to us about the first steps on how to do that, and then kind of we'll work our way down to the nitty gritty.
I think where it really starts out is really understanding who you want to be when you grow up, right? Who do you want to be when you're a big boy or a big girl, and finding out what your company should look like as a thought leadership brand. I think a lot of B2B companies right now really struggle with, especially ones that have been around for maybe a little bit longer, really struggle with identifying themselves within the marketplace. And there's so much noise and there's so much going on that they really don't know who they are or who they want to be to their customers. And they've been really focused on selling, but not really focused on building their brand so that the sales become a regenerative process and referrals happen. So it starts, I think, with understanding who you want to be and understanding who your target customer is to the nth degree, right? That ICP profile, really understanding who that person is. And then understanding what their needs are, what their challenges are, what their wants are, and then developing content to fit that is also SEO rich, right? There's a lot of SEO shops out there that'll just say, you got to have X amount of thousands of words on your blog with keyword density. But if you drive traffic to your blog and you create content for those people that are coming and it doesn't resonate when they get there, and it doesn't separate you as a thought leader, then all of that work is really for nothing, right? So you drove the traffic, but did they engage? Did they actually consume the content? Do they want to read more? That's really what separates, I think, great brands from other brands. And so our whole deal is, how do we now drive the traffic to be able to get you to the point where you need to be that thought leadership brand that people want to keep consuming. They want to keep coming back for more, because we know, just based on the research, that there's going to be a certain amount of touch points or consumption that's going to happen on your content before they decide to engage. It's not like they're just going to come in and buy your $120,000 solution. That's not how this works. So you've got to have engaging content on an ongoing basis that they want to consume.
Got it. So let's talk about the different types of engaging content that one could potentially execute on.
Right. So when we think about content, think about the funnel, right? So think about the content funnel. Is it top of funnel awareness-based content that's really putting your scene out there? So blog posts, social media, that kind of stuff. Or are we driving all the way down to the bottom where we're talking about maybe webinars, one-on-ones, really in-depth white papers, that kind of stuff that's going to convert? A lot of people tend to be overweighted on one or the other, right? They're either overweighted on top, middle, or bottom. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that we see, is there's no real balance throughout. So when we're thinking about lead flow from the top of the funnel and how people are coming in to consume the content, think about how you're balancing it out from top to bottom and what that content consumption process looks like from the top to drive people to the blog site or whatever it might be, social media, and then driving them down to a point where they're like, I'd actually like to read this, right? I'd like to read this white paper. I'd like to read this case study. Gated. Now we get the email, we get the content information. Now we can nurture that lead, and now we can start having conversations with that person about what their future looks like with us.
Okay. So I know I'm trying to think of some questions that my audience might have for you, when we're talking about this, right? So I could hear the objections already. I don't like to write blogs, right?
Sure.
But I'm really good on video.
Yep.
So
do video.
Right. So
right, like
easy answer.
Right, there's so much that you can, like, I think people have a real hang up with writing in that they think, oh, this is really difficult, right? So I don't want to do it. And my answer to that is, so don't do it, right? If you're really good at creating video, go do the video, like what you and I are doing right now. Make sure that it's rich in experience, that people actually want to watch it. They want to get excited about it. That you have a decent conversation going on. But then go find someone who can turn that into multiple different experiences that you can have throughout the funnel, right? So you've got that top of funnel video content. You can get that transcribed. You can get that turned into multiple blog posts. You can get that turned into multiple social media posts. Turn that into infographics. Turn that into some cool cartoons or whatever it might be that's going to help people engage with that top content. Very much sort of like a modulated approach, right? Mm-hmm. So just slicing the salmon to make it actually edible sushi.
Yeah. So I love that. I love sushi. So here's my question. What happens in the middle of the funnel? Because you talked about the top of the funnel, you talked about the bottom of the funnel, but what's going on in the middle of the funnel?
Yeah. I mean, really, I think what a lot of people struggle with here is they're thinking about, how do we keep these people engaged so that they continue to consume whatever it is we're doing? And so for me, this really comes down to digging deeper into the quality of content that you're producing. So your top of funnel stuff has to get people to want to read more. It has to get people to want to consume you more, but your middle of funnel stuff has to keep them engaged. And this is where understanding that ICP or understanding your marketing personas is really going to pay dividends, because without really understanding that, you're not really going to know what you should or should not be producing. And so maybe a good way to segue from this is to start thinking about the types of content that you could start producing at any one of these major funnels. So when we're thinking of mid-funnel content, we're thinking of webinars, we're thinking of panels, we're thinking of, and that's in the video side of things. If it's written content, it could be maybe a broader case study that's being written of the industry about how a company like yours has approached this problem before. And it's really about identifying with the target customer how they could use you, but not technically you, right? Use someone like you in that kind of a situation to help solve their problems. So it's about identifying where those problems are at the beginning, right? Keep them consuming. And then as we go down to mid-funnel, it's about, okay, now that you keep consuming, this is something that you're actually interested in talking about. Here are some resources that you can read where people like you, who probably have similar problems like you or similar opportunities like you, have used people like us to solve their problems.
Yeah, I love that approach. Middle of the funnel content for me is a lot of behind the scenes stuff. You know,
Yes.
People love that behind the scenes stuff, whether I'm doing an IG story where I'm saying, hey guys, I'm me and my team are laying out some different logo concepts today. And this one's like, I did it yesterday. I was like, oh man, these are going to be tough to decide on, cause they're all so good. Like, this is what we're doing today. Right. People love that stuff.
You've really got to be it's about the nurturing process, right? You're nurturing their interest throughout. So when we're thinking about how the funnel works, you're now at the interest and the consideration phase more than anything else. So whether it's like a series of emails that you're sending out to nurture them, or free trials, buying guides, behind the scenes, that kind of stuff, that's where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're working with a solar panel company right now that does solar panel installs. And, I told them, I might be dating myself here, but I told them a really awesome content strategy approach would be, now they're B2C, but you could still do this B2B, is the whole Bob Vila, this whole house approach.
That's a great idea.
Right? I told them,
idea.
I was like, because they have big personalities, the two partners. Well, there's a couple partners, the two that I'm working with, they have great personalities. And I mean, they're from New York, so Long Island, Westchester, right? So they have these big personalities. I said, dude, showing up on a job and taking them behind the scenes on a job like Bob Vila,
that would be super cool.
I said, you would turn the industry upside down, because when we did our research on that industry, it's very sterile.
Yes. Yeah. Dodgy, stuffy.
They all say
we don't want to do anything wrong.
They all say the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
Zero money down and all of that. So there's a reason why they all say the same stuff. But what if we zagged when they were zigging, right? And did our content approach like this, right? They were like blown away. They were like, we can do this. We have the resources to do this. So I was like, we need to get on this now. So they have their team in place, and they're now going out to job sites, and they're doing this. And I was like, dude, we want to show the bloopers and all, right? We want to give them that real taste of like who we are as people. And I think people buy people first, then they're going to buy your product or service.
What you said there is so important for everyone to understand, is people by people, right? And people's BS meters are so dialed in now that I feel like if you're trying to be too over the top with your brand, like very corporate, people are just going to be like, I'm not into it, right? I got to understand who's the type of person that I'm going to be working with throughout this process to really make it valuable for me. And so when you sterilize it too much, you just become like everyone else. And so that kind of behind the scenes stuff is gold.
Yeah, I think that's going to really push them ahead of their competition. It's going to build a great rapport with their audience. There's probably going to be characters that come out of this. I was working with a garden center not too far from here. It used to be my old neighbor, and he's got a bunch of guys on the yard, right? And he's got couple guys with big personalities. I was like, you have to include them in your videos. Because between your personality and their personality, it's like fireworks, right? So he started to do it, and the son of a bitch started getting more views and likes and comments and more engagement than I ever seen.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And then that converts to dollars at the end of the day, right? Because people are like, hey, this guy's just down the road. I need to go check this out.
Yeah.
Right? And when you can make it targeted like that, perfect.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you this. I want to dive into this question is, how do B2B businesses need to start transitioning or pivoting? I know I'm using those cliche words right now, but post-COVID or during COVID still, we're technically still in COVID, but like, what do we need to start to do right away or in the future to help us start to deal with the new norm?
I'm glad that you said that, because I think like any kind of marketing strategy you had before, you should really just like have a celebration ceremony and burn it, because it's no longer applicable. I think when we're thinking about what this new norm looks like, and you're a B2B company and you're starting to think about the content that you want to produce, I think it's got to come down to how are your customers struggling through this process? And then how are you going to be able to help them with those problems that they're currently facing? So the problems that they had a year ago are not the problems that they have today. Let's be clear. They're facing new problems that they don't know how to fix, right? So if you're lucky enough to be in any kind of SaaS or database business, you're making gobs of money right now because people are being forced into a digital transformation process, and you can really help them during this time. But if you're a traditional consulting practice or a law firm or whatever it might be, now is a very scary time for you. And so you've got to start thinking about how this issue, how this pandemic has affected your customer at the most deep, fundamental, emotional way. Because it's not just about that they've lost business or that, you know, they've lost customers or accounts have gotten smaller. It's about understanding how they feel about that. It's about understanding the impact on, you know, their families, and, you know, is mom and dad going to be able to afford to send us to the school that we want to go to this year? Are we going to be able to afford to put mom and dad in the home? If you're thinking of the other side of the table, right? It's about understanding the emotions that go with that, because it's not just about a logic argument. And this is where everyone falls flat. Aristotle, thousands of years ago, came up with the whole concept of pathos, ethos, and logos in an argument that makes sense to get someone to change their mind. Logos is something that we all default to, right? Logic, where we think logically someone should be able to make this decision. But we're not dealing with, most people are not making logical decisions. So we've got to think of ethos, which is our ethical credibility involved in that, and pathos, which is the emotional aspect of that. You've got to be able to tie into the emotion of what that person is feeling right now to get them to convert. Because right now they're going through a very emotional time. So it's not just about their problems. It's about how they feel about those emotions. And that's going to help drive the kind of copy you write. That's going to help drive the taglines or subjects that you write. That's going to help you with the contextualization of the video that you put in place. Whatever it might be, it's about connecting with the human behind the brand.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that track, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. That is it right there. You know, so if you get anything out of today's episode, it's that right there, what Mark just said. I got a couple more questions for Mark, but before we get into that, I got one more quick message for you. If you're a business owner who feels your branding isn't truly representing the value that you deliver, check out this free video training that will help you level up your brand's messaging and online presence so that you can start attracting higher quality clients. Visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net/level up my branding. Okay, so one more question for you, Mark. Why this for you?
Why branding?
Yeah.
Why content marketing?
Yeah. Why? What? Why?
Because branding is the gift that keeps giving, man. I mean, you know this. It's everyone's so focused on short-term PPC campaigns that may deliver leads, but do nothing for you in the long term to develop the kind of brand that you want to develop that keeps bringing your customers back. The great thing about creating any kind of inbound traffic is, especially when we're focusing on branding and content and that kind of stuff, is it is the gift that keeps giving. Yes, you have to invest more upfront. Yes, you have to go through maybe a short amount of time where you're like, I'm not seeing it, guys. I'm like not seeing the results. But then once it starts to kick in and you've developed the brand that actually delivers on the promises that you're making to your customer, that's the gift that keeps giving. You will keep on making money with that. And that's why I chose content as a subset of brand, because I feel like within the whole idea of brand, without good content, without stuff that's going to engage your customers for the long term, and that's going to create that organic traffic that keeps converting, you're not going to make it long term.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I'm laughing. You know, I was talking to one of my old clients before, and I was laughing because, you know, he was like, "Oh man, I see what you're doing on your live streams. It's like completely different from a few years ago." And I was like, "Yeah, we leveled up a little bit." And, you know, everybody laughed at me 4 or 5 years ago, like, "Oh my God, does Henry have a real job? Like, is this what he does?" Right? And everybody was, you know, laughing, and I was like, dude, I'm just building content, and yeah, it sucks, right?
But look now, right? Look at you now. Look at the kind of volume and growth that you've seen as a result of investing in your brand.
That's it. I mean, the best investment that you can make is in yourself and in your business. I sent that out in an email today. I said, what's better than that? You know, and I know people are skeptical right now, uncertain times, and we could make a list of excuses. I had one of the best years this year in business because of my messaging and because I stayed the course. Yeah, like every other business, we had to do what we had to do to stay alive and to stay afloat. So I was looking at my organizational chart yesterday, and we had pre-COVID, we had like 15 people, right? And now it's like 4, right? And it's so funny because now we're running such a more refined machine, and it's so cleaner in operation. We had a lot of extra baggage that we were right, because, you know, that's what happens, you know, and that's why I always say, like, great branding is all about subtraction. Great businesses are all about subtraction, not adding and adding and adding and adding. You want to refine, and really get understood as that person or that business. Like when people think branding, they think Henry now.
Yeah.
Right? And that's
100% they do. That
was the goal. You know, that was the goal. So, you know, this is all good stuff. And I want people to understand, like, COVID is not the last thing that's going to come around that's going to disrupt markets. That's going to disrupt worlds. Like, we need to get on with it. You know, we need to carry on our mission, carry on our purpose. And we can't let this get to us. So it's not, you know, oh, I'm not going to do it because of COVID. It's how can we do it with COVID? You know,
yeah, and I think the fact that you were willing to invest in that, especially during a difficult time, has helped you discover that refining process And now you're getting refined down to exactly the kind of brand that you want to be, but it's only because you invested, right? Like, and this is where so many people fall flat is they're like, well, are you saying that I have to put out more content? Are you saying that I have to, create more content out there? Yes. The answer is yes, because you don't know what you are yet. You have no idea the way your brand wants to go. And only through that trial and error of going through the fire are you really going to start refining down to who you want to be when you grow up, who your brand wants to be when you grow up, and how your business is going to be built and the brand that is going to be represented by. It's ultimately about going through that refining process, going through the fire. I'm so blown away that you said that, because so many people miss that.
Yeah. It's what do you want to be remembered by? You know, do you want to be remembered? Dean Graziosi was on the show a few months back, or pre-COVID. And he said, Henry, how do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered as the timid guy that folded after every hardship? Or do you want your son to see you as that type of man? Or do you want your son to, and this is where he really got me, he's like, do you want your son to see you as, listen, Dad's going to fail here and there, but one thing I love about my dad is that he just keeps getting up and going after it one time after the next. And I'm reading it's not a new book by any means, but I went on my walk this morning and I read the book. I'm starting to listen to the book Shoe Dog from
Phil Knight's book.
Right. And, one of the things that were said like 6 minutes into the book was, cowards never start. And hold on, I'm going to screw this up. Of course I'm going to screw it up. Right. But let me read this to you because it was really powerful. Yeah. So he says, the cowards never start and the weak die along the way. And I'm walking and I'm thinking to myself, man, that one just hit me like a ton of bricks. And
people forget, man. They forget that guy was selling shoes out of the back of his car, right? Like you think about Nike and the massive organization and brand that it is today. You forget that it was one guy selling shoes out of the back of his car. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and he did, which was amazing. But that line, it just hit me because it made me think like how many people die each day. I'm going to get morbid here because I want to make a point. How many people die each day that never got a chance or had the chance and never did what they dreamed of doing? And then I bumped into a Les Brown quote, or I was listening to him on a video, and he said, the richest place on earth? He got me. He said the graveyard, because there's so many people that die that had these awesome innovative ideas and they were just too scared to get going, or they were worried about what everybody else was going to say, or the shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? And they died with those thoughts and those things that could have transformed the world, right? And as I'm continuing my walk and I'm walking up this big freaking hill by my house.
Man, that gives me goosebumps, man, thinking about all of the amazing opportunities that could have been.
Right. And I'm saying, man, that sure as hell ain't going to be me, and that's what drives me, and I share this with you, not to talk about myself, but to inspire you guys to start thinking that way. Like I study successful people because I want to learn from them. I think it was John Maxwell. I listened to this YouTube channel called Law of Attraction, and they're like 12-minute videos that are basically all jammed with really successful people and one-liner after the one-liner, right? And he jams them all together into one video. And I think it was John Maxwell. He was like, if you want to become successful, the formula is easy. All you need to do is just find a couple successful people that are crushing it and do what they do.
Yeah, Tony Robbins has a success quote like that where he's like, in order to become successful, study success. In order to be wealthy, study wealth. And for whatever reason, that just goes over so many people's heads where they're like, what do you mean? It's like, no, that's it. That's the secret, right? Just study what they're doing.
Yes. And so if you want to be great at B2B content marketing, I got to tie this back in. We get a little personal development here, but to tie this all back in, to cut out all the guesswork of this is I have a colleague that does this beautifully. He will go on social media and he will take some time and he will find a B2B business that's doing really well. And if he can't find one, he will go to social media platforms and just ask who's out there crushing it on social media right now, on Instagram. He'll get a ton of people sending him Instagram profiles. He goes to the ones that he resonates with and says, ooh, I like that guy. That guy's crushing it. He's got a gazillion followers. His engagement's good. I'm going to start modeling his stuff, but I'm going to do it my way. So he never loses his personality. He never loses who he is. He keeps that, but he watches the frameworks of what they're doing. That has cut out years and years and years of trial and error for my business. And I'm sure you're going to find the same result if you just do that. Game over.
Preach, man. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, you just have to, but you have to do it. You know what I mean? People don't want to work anymore. People, it's like, I hate to say this, but you got to do it.
Yep. I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of people have, and they were probably, I'm sure you were told this as a kid. If not, there's a lot of people that have. I was fortunate to grow up in a home where my parents were super supportive, and I really grew up in the most amazing home ever. My parents said, look, you can be whatever you want to be. And this is the part that most people leave out. And in order to be that person, in order to achieve what you want to achieve, you have to put the work in. Right. And so, and they were a great example of that, of like working hard every day, not complaining and figuring it out. Right. And I think that for a lot of people, they get stuck before the end where they're like, I can be whatever I want to be. Belief is great, but without hard work, it's going to mean nothing, guys. Like you got to believe and you got to put in the effort.
Yeah, you got to do. So your goal, your goal for everybody that's watching and listening is to get out there and find somebody who's creating great content that is evoking emotion in you, and ask yourself, would my audience appreciate this type of content? And if the answer is yes, do it. Do it. I'll give you a quick example. So I hired a couple cartoonists in the past couple of months to create cartoons on social media, on Instagram specifically, because I saw that content doing really, really well. That cartoonish
it converts on LinkedIn too, surprisingly.
Yeah. So I hired a cartoonist and I had him do a bunch of cartoons for me. Now I noticed that they weren't getting the love of some of the other cartoons where I just would share that content. So there's an Instagram account called Success Pictures. I love it. I love their account, right? It's all cartoons. It's all cartoons with great, great one-liners, right? So this month I saved $250 and I told my cartoonist, listen, I love you, but we're just not getting the love with the ones that you're doing. What I'm going to do is just share Success Pictures, obviously credit them, and I'm going to put those cartoons on my page, right? Thousands of likes, shares, comments. So I became more resourceful is what I'm saying, right? Still great content, not mine, but I put my spin on it in the comments, right? And that's what I'm saying, guys. It's all doable if you want it done.
How did you get, I feel like you've worked on that mindset though, like especially seeing your evolution, like that mindset is something that you've developed over time. There's that resourcefulness or that figure it out at this, right? Like whatever it is that we're trying to define is you were willing to put in the work to figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working, figure out what's working, do that, right? I think for a lot of people, they're trying to recreate the wheel. It doesn't need to be recreated, right? That level of your willingness to figure it out of what's working is going to help you tenfold. And that's a great example. The example that you just gave is a great example of finding out what's working best for you and leveraging that.
Cost me nothing but some time, probably 3 minutes of my time, to go to the Success Pictures page, grab something that I think my audience will like, that I resonate with, right? That I could put my 2 cents on and share it, right? I've been doing that. And that's how I'm spiking this algorithm. That's how I'm playing the algorithm game, is because believe it or not, my content, I'll be the first to tell you, my content doesn't get thousands and thousands of views. It doesn't get a gazillion comments or shares. It doesn't. I'll be the first to tell you that, but I'll be the first to tell you that my bank account doesn't hurt either. So the vanity metrics in all of that. So I laugh when I say people, oh, well, you're going to follow that guy. He's got like 2 followers. Yeah, but he's probably got 200,000 in the bank and he doesn't even give a shit.
Those 2 followers convert.
That's the point. That's the point that I'm making. So don't worry about the views and all of that. I'm telling you, people are going to bash that into your head. Like, you got to have the views. You got to have the, right? So you can have 100 followers. You really could have 100 followers. If they're engaged and they love you and they're buying from you,
it's the whole concept of having 1,000 true fans, right? Like, like real fans, that's money in the bank.
It is. So, don't get caught up on that stuff so much, right? And pay attention. But the point that I was trying to make with the whole algorithm spike thing is my content doesn't get much love, right? And that's fine. Like videos of me and like the things like that. I give it a solid C or a B plus, right? So every 3rd or 4th post, I'll go with a viral piece of content that spikes the algorithm, that spikes the impressions, right? So what happens is it'll be like my post. It'll get, mediocre engagement, and then you'll get this spike. And what will happen is people will look at that post and be like, oh, who's this brand doctor guy? And then go back and start looking at all of my other stuff. And that's how I'm gaming freaking Instagram and I'm gaming other social platforms, is because I'll play the game as hard as you want to play it, pal. Right. And so that's what I do. And that's how I use viral content without trying to create it myself. Does that make sense?
The cool thing about what you're doing is it's always driving back to your brand, which is what I think that a lot of people miss as well. Is a lot of people are building their houses on rented land, right? Like look, don't get me wrong. Social media is amazing. I think you should invest in social. You should be investing in content on social and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it's got to deliver back to your brand and creating conversions and creating a community that you manage, whether it's on email or a community that you develop in a forum on your website, or if it's a text community, whatever it might be. You've got to be developing that over time, because as we've seen, these communities evaporate at some point in time. And I mean, it remains to be seen what's going to happen with TikTok, for example, right? This thing that just exploded out of nothing and is amazing, but now its future is in the hands of lawmakers, and it's kind of in a tough position. And those people that have built their house on that rented land, once that goes away, that's a difficult position to be in. So use it, but don't become reliant on it. That's very important for people to understand.
Yeah. You have to have your world built, right? That's why it's important to build text message communities. It's important to build email platform communities, right? Because like you said, all these different channels could be poof one day, and then you're left high and dry, right? So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. But one thing that I will say, because I don't want to contradict myself, is don't try to do everything at the same time. Right? If you're going to do if you're going to do Instagram, go all in on Instagram for 6 months or a year. and be all that you could be there. And then if you don't like it anymore, or if you're not seeing the results that you're looking for, then it's time to go, right? But give it some time and focus. That's going to help you sort of master each platform slowly but surely. But listen, man, Rome wasn't built in a day. So I didn't get this live stream looking the way it does. This is my 4th year doing this, right? So I didn't get this look and feel right out of the gate. You know, I had to learn slowly but surely, and I saw what other people were doing. I saw how much, they were putting in to it, and I said, well, I need to play at that level, right? So we did, and so here we are. So, dude, Mark, I could go on for another 2 hours. I got another meeting in 20 minutes, right? So I gotta wrap up here. So before we go, where could people learn more about you?
Easiest place is to go straight to our website, www.contentcallout.com, or find us on LinkedIn. We are a B2B content marketing agency. So if you're thinking B2B, you got to be on LinkedIn, and that's where we are.
Awesome, dude. Mark, such a pleasure. Dude, you lived up way past the expectations of what Todd said about you.
Nailed it.
Oh, man. Thanks again, dude, for coming on the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I love what you're doing. I think what you're doing is changing the way that a lot of people approach brand and a lot of people approach business. I love the positive messages that you put out there, and I think you're crushing it, man.
Oh, thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. I really do. There you have it, guys. Another episode in the books. Now, hope you're taking notes, and I hope you take action, because that's the only way any of this is going to work. So have an amazing day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next episode real soon.
Hey everyone, this is Henry Kaminsky Jr. again, and really quick, I want to invite you to a one-on-one consult with me right now if you're looking for the clarity and focus you need to build your brand. Over the past 13 years, I've served hundreds of entrepreneurs that have great products but struggled tremendously with articulating its value to their ideal customers. You didn't get into business to just change a few lives, did you? Your ideal clients need you. And when your brand has precision-crafted messaging coupled with beautifully thoughtful design that sounds, looks, and feels like you, they'll know you're the perfect match for them. If this is something you're struggling with, what I want you to do right now is pause this audio and go visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net, and book your one-on-one console call with me. Remember, the quality of your brand will determine the quality of your clients, and the quality of your clients will determine the quality of your life.